Okay. So tonight it's my privilege and really my honor to introduce our speaker tonight. She came up from the Seattle area just for us. She's been teaching and researching at UW for more than 20 years. Okay, so Kathy Puderball is an ARNP that I work with, and she connected us. And Kathy sent me an email and said, if you want to feel insignificant, here's her CV. It was 27 pages long.
Oh my
goodness. And so I can't go through all the things she's done because she's published so many articles and so many things, but I do want to mention that she's worked with the American Indian and the Alaskan Native population. She's done a lot of cancer research and suicide research, or suicide prevention research, let's say. And she's published lots of articles and books too.
Book chapters.
Book chapters. So anyway, she spent a lot of time up here in Whatcom County working with the Nooksack and Lummi tribes. And still working with Lummi. So anyway, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. June Strickland.
Thank you.
Well, it's really a very special pleasure to be with you guys here tonight. And I'll say, AAMA relations. I'm from the family of Hawkins. My people are Cherokee, and that's where my good southern accent comes from. I'm from the deep south, and I try to hold on to it because it's a part of who I am and who my people are. And my honey's sitting back there in the back. He drove me up today.
Oh, nice.
That's Sam. And I was trying to get him to remind me how many years we've been married. Coming up on 56, is that right, Papa?
Wow.
Yeah. So, and we have 3 children. And you know you're getting old when your children get their AARP cards.
Yes.
And we have 4 beautiful granddaughters. And one of them is only a week old. So we're so excited we got a new granddaughter. So what I thought I'd do tonight is talk with you a little bit and sort of get a sense of the kinds of things that you guys might want to know. And this PowerPoint that I brought is a lecture that I usually do for our undergraduate students in the class on culture that they take. I work in psychosocial community health in the School of Nursing. And so I have 2 clinical sites in tribes over on the peninsula where we take our undergraduate and graduate students and prepare them for work in Native communities. And so they come to my home, and some of what I talk about here is part of my orientation for them when they come to my home, to understand some things about Native values and ways of viewing the world and health and healing that will help all of us who are working with tribes. And I did my master's thesis down with the Muckleshoot tribe back in 1974, and maybe before some of you guys were born. And I've been working with tribes all across the Pacific Northwest, but mostly Washington State. And it's been, oh gosh, from about 1994 to a little over 2000, and a number of different studies with Nooksack. And I just have funded a new study that we're processing with the Lummi people, looking at issues of caregivers for tribal seniors. And so hoping to get that up and running sometime, either this summer or by this fall. So mentored a lot of our graduate students in doing their research work, also with tribes all up and down the coast. So I'm wondering if you share with me a little bit about kind of the kinds of things that you're interested in, or hope that I might say something about, or maybe share some experiences you might have had in interface with tribal people in your work. That'd probably kind of get us started. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm one of our used to be an officer at this chapter. Now I just kind of fill in. I work in an occupational health clinic, and we have relationships with the local tribes to perform physical examinations, workman's comp type exams, and we do a lot of drug screen testing because of the type of, there's the Whatcom tribal housing, there's the Silver Reef Casino, all these places that employ people, they do just like what the other companies and stuff. One of the things I'm interested is there something that we should be aware of when dealing with tribal people so that we don't inadvertently offend them in some manner when we're doing our exams and stuff like that?
One of the things, I've done some guesswork with our nurse practitioners and the folks who are doing direct patient care and diagnostic workup. And the way we teach our folks in Western medicine, we have sort of a set of questions for assessment. For most Native people, that feels really invasive. And for elders, it, where people are used to telling stories, and they don't understand why you're asking. I'm also adopted Yakima. I wear my braids not for a fashion statement because I'm a winter spirit dancer. But, so my brother would say, why do they ask all those questions? Or they think that, like one he really upset him is to ask what his religion is, because nobody understands Longhouse. And there's no checkbox that's going to cover Longhouse. No, he says, should I think that they're going to kill me and that's why they have to round up the priest or something? Oh gosh, he has a great sense of humor. But the cadence of speech, some of you guys may notice that with some of our populations, of course, it's very important not to stereotype because I'm mixed blood Cherokee and Irish, and a lot of Native people along the coast are mixed blood with a number of different people. And so in some ways they're very acculturated, but also very private in protection of the religion and the spiritual work. And part of that is because we didn't really have religious freedom until 1973. So some of you guys may have heard of the smokehouses and the spirit dancers, and people went to jail for having memorials for their family with the big giveaways. And the spirit dancing was all undercover because of the fear of ending up in jail for it. So, so that's kind of part of the history of that. Pamela Amos did some study. She was an anthropologist at the university back in the early 70s. And hers was some of the first work about some of the spiritual things. And at that time, when I started doing my work with Muckleshoot, I felt it was a good idea not to include her work in my citations because they weren't very comfortable, and they'd had an anthropologist at Muckleshoot just before I went down there, and were not very trusting. And so, but I think it was probably about 10 years ago that Nootside people had a big event and honored her for some of her contributions, so times change. But as I'm hearing you talk, I'm remembering I did a study over at Nootsack. They decided that it would be helpful to better understand pain management because a lot of people had injuries. And there were a lot of guys in logging, and maybe you're seeing them in your occupational therapy even now. And one of the things that, and I had a pain nurse specialist working with me, and we got referrals sometimes down to specialists in Seattle. Because many times if the health provider saw that there was any history of drug addiction or alcohol problems, they would under-medicate. And these people were then not really getting appropriate care and good management for their pain, and it was really a challenge as we kind of moved along. So we were doing research, but we were also providing a service at the same time. So some of the things I'll talk about tonight are about cultural values and sort of how some of that interfaces. There's some sort of general cultural values that sort of is relevant for tribes all across the country, but then there's more specific for the coast, your folks along here are Coast Salish, except for Nooksack, who identify as Inland River people from Fraser Valley. So when I first started working with them, when we were writing up things, I said, well, what shall we call you? And I was all set to put down Coast Salish. And they said, no, we're Inland River people. So from Fraser Valley and Vancouver Island too. So. Okay, other thoughts, questions, experiences you've had? Yeah.
Just traveling somewhere within the United States. I've been fortunate enough to be observant, hopefully, of different cultures of Indian, different tribes. We had a former state president who was a Native American from the Southwest region, Taos in particular. And her father was one of the first Native people in their pueblo that had gone to university and had become a forest ranger, manager of forest land taking care of it. Also, I've been to Alaska and been able to see some of that. And also my husband works with a number of different tribes, Tulalip and Nooksack in particular, and not too much Muckleshoot, that's a little too far. Whatever. So, but it is interesting to me. The other thing is that my grandson, 9 years old, decided he wanted to do a report on the Salish people.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where there is this much information that we were able to find and for a young kid to digest and stuff. I mean, it was very difficult to have him understand. But we finally found a book on the Salish seed, and so we've gotten a few things along the way. But it is interesting to find what's there and what isn't, where we're missing.
I was working with kids who were 14 through 16 in the schools over near Nooksack. And at that time, back in the 1990s, late 1990s, we still didn't require Indian history in the schools, to be taught. And so, but one of the things I'm seeing is that some of the tribes have written their own history. And so if you went, for instance, Port Gammasclallam have a book on the history of their people. And museums are a good place to find some of these things. In 1989, the Suquamish people had paddled to Seattle. And with that came a major cultural revitalization of people along the coast. And what they were told was if they started the canoe journey, which all the tribes now along the coast are involved with, maybe some of the people you know have been involved with that, that the spirit of the people would come back, and the old songs, and the culture. And I started taking students over to Port Gammasclallam and Suquamish back in 1997. And so I've been over there for over 20 years. And when we first went there, totem poles were just being carved. And they had come to the university and had gotten some feedback information and figured out for themselves to revitalize and learn to carve the totems again. Now those totems are there in front of their longhouses, and they look like they've been there forever because they're weathered now, And so when I take students over, they sort of, it's like folks, when I took the first group of nursing students over here, I carved them feather earrings because the carvers said you could have the chips from the totems that were carved into cedar. And so I had 10 students, and so I painstakingly carved little feather earrings for them to wear. And our school was so excited that we were doing something different, by taking folks on the ferry over to the tribes. So, and actually paid from the dean's office special funding for us to do that, for the first few years, and then it ended up in our department budget.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. But the coast people are water people. And so the kinds of things that you may have seen or think of as native that shows up on TV programs or whatever, Dances with Wolves or whatever,
Right.
is more of the Plains Plateau folks, horse people, which the Eastern Washington natives are. And so the horse is a really important part of the culture, buckskin, war bonnets and all kinds of stuff. But the people along the coast, you may have seen the button blankets and the cedar bark headbands.
And the cedar bark boxes.
Yes, the bitwood boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Actually, have one. The carvers over at Port Gamble, I have over the 20 years collected a lot of their stuff, which I'll probably donate back to their museum at some time. But some of these carvers now are getting really quite old, and so with the canoe journey, all of these powerful, beautiful old songs have come back. Naming ceremonies have returned. The paddle, the canoe journey is a big part of healing for the community. You had to be drug-free and alcohol-free to be a part of that, and so canoe journey families are really a major part of the healing of communities. So Suquamish hosted the canoe journey one year, and the community health nurse was one of our students in our nursing program. And so she had to prepare for having all those many people and triaging and trying to deal with any medical emergencies that might arise. But during that time, the elders were weaving the regalia, and also the Russians had a big influence along the coast, and so the people took what they learned about knitting. They're one of the few tribes, Alaska Native people, who are big-time knitters, but their knitting does not look Russian. It has a native look to it. So understanding the arts and the songs and the dance, the soul of the people is an important part of understanding the values. And I always teach students to make giveaway, because giveaway is such an important part of all of our cultures, but Pacific Northwest is especially giveaway country. And so as they're going across the ferry, then they make giveaway presents, and at the end of our rotation, we have a big giveaway to thank the community for the experience. So that's just a part of understanding the importance of giving and the value of giving. So, and indeed, it's very different up here. I spent one weekend with the Tulalip people. They invited me up because they were having a cultural event for all their young people, and they were teaching them to do the cedar bark roses and the cedar bark weaving for little baskets, all kinds of stuff. And so I decided to go in my regalia, and I had a basket I was weaving and took it along, and I slept in the smokehouse at Tulalip, and my nose the next day was covered with all kinds of soot because they're burning fires in there and you're breathing it. And one of the historians came and said, he says, my mom used to make a basket like that. And I said, well, with Yakima, we used to go out and gather the hemp or the cedar bark roots and make all this stuff. Now we go to Walmart and buy the hemp,
Right.
and make it with yarn from Joanne's. And life changes, and we're not wearing buckskin, we're wearing cotton. So things get adapted, but it's still possible. He was so excited, so I said, you go over there to Joanne's and we can get all this stuff. It may not be like your grandma's, but
we can,
it'd be the modern day person's version of this basket. So, but they seem so happy to have an elder in traditional regalia carry the weaving and the basket making of the people, and being a part of events as much as you can, and finding someone who can guide you. A mentor can be really helpful as well. But my sense is that you guys are probably working in Western facilities, not inside
Yes.
the tribe, so that
Yeah.
makes it a little bit more challenging for
Yeah.
you. Other kinds of questions, other thoughts?
Well, I'm curious now that so many clinics have gone to electronic medical records. I would imagine that that would feel invasive too. I mean, we have to take pictures and you know, there's certain questions, like you said, that we have to ask. How do they feel about that type of?
Well, first I have to tell you a story first. I'll say Atwas Althea Roberts, who was a medical records person over at NSAC for a number of years, and I worked a lot with her. She was the HR before then. And Atwas is a way of saying they've passed on with respect in Yakima. And so she has passed on, but she told me this really funny story. They had a new clinic director, and this gal had lived in a rural area. And so she was all gung-ho for medical records, let's get us up to speed with her. And Althea said, and so I told her that could be a problem. And she says, well, why? And she says, well, because we lose power up here a lot of times. And she says, oh, you must have backup power. Well, as it turned out, this guy had passed on the week before in the clinic, and he was the one who went out to this shed, and when they lost power, would
Crank it up.
crank it up.
Oh my
And
goodness!
she
Oh,
says,
no.
well, see, our problem is we lose power a lot. If everything's on the
Yeah,
electronic
right.
record,
Oh yeah.
and we lose power, he's gone and nobody else
Just
knows.
get time to it. Oh my
Crank
goodness.
it up. They must have solved it somehow, because I bet you were on the electronic record. But I kept trying to help the feds, who fund lots of stuff at the national level that I need to access to get money, didn't seem to understand that the whole world is not in advanced technology. When rubber
Yes.
meets the road in rural
Yeah.
country,
Yep.
it looks a little different. So, yeah, some of these things feel very invasive. And one of the things that I've seen across the state in some of the interface with some of the tribes who are still Public Law 638 tribes still linked into IHS and then linked in with their data down to the Northwest Area Indian Health Board, always are having tension with the protection of tribal rights and the record data, and then it ending up compiled in a center in Portland. And so there's sort of an ongoing. And so there's not only the invasiveness, but also how to protect those data. And this study that I'm working on with Lummi right now, it's taken me a whole year to make through all the clearances on human subjects for detection of. There's one layer that protects the rights of the individual, another layer of approval for Northwest Indian College that protects the rights of the tribe and the population as a whole, another that you have to navigate with the university about academic rights for publication when we have the tribes having final authority about what they'll allow to be published, which is okay with me, and I convinced the faculty that'd be okay. And then the last piece of it is the data management protection and getting all that between the university and the tribe. And so we're this last stage now, and I've got the funding submitted, and we know we have funding, we just don't know how much under the package. So, but it's a long process to try to protect tribal rights with all of this. So, yeah, these things are kind of incongruent with cultural values.
Okay.
So, other kinds of questions or things that have come up for you?
Is there anything in particular, just a simple process of taking vitals, and you have to make contact. Is there anything we should know? Or
Well, one of the things you might watch is, depending upon how traditional the people are, eye contact may be more or less different. I know when I first started teaching at the university, in some of these large seminars, it kind of scared the students because my teaching style is different than our normal nursing lectures. And so I tell stories. And sometimes maybe don't give as much eye contact as they might have been used to seeing. And so about halfway into this class of about 70 students, and they're sort of in this amphitheater, little hand raises, and I said, so help me understand what your concern is. Well, other teachers, and I always translate that into other mothers, other teachers stand behind a podium and they give a lecture so that we know what the test is going to be and what's going to be covered. And you sit on the desk and tell us stories, and we don't know what to make of that. and you do exercises that are games. We don't know how to play games, you know. And so I said, okay, then let me see, so I'll meet you halfway, you know. When I tell my story, I'll tell you what the point is, because in Indian country, we can tell you what the point is.
Right.
Because your perception of the point could be different from somebody else's. So, but anyway, I said, you know, I'll tell you kind of what that is. And one of the things I would say to them, it's important for you to take a deep breath and relax, because I'm not going to give you a test. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break you guys, you can break into teams, and you're going to get 10 questions to write about, and you can choose 5 of them. Surely you can find at least 5 of the 10 that you guys think you can do well with. And so they all sort of settled down, okay, it's going to be good. And then midterm came, and I passed out the midterm work that they needed to turn in. Immediately hands are all up.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, help me understand your anxiety now. Well, we can't see how many words you want or pages you want for this paper. I hadn't thought about that. And so I said, well, help me understand why this is a concern. Other mothers tell us exactly how many words.
Yep, 500
And
words.
if and they measure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they measure. And so if we're a word over, we start losing points. Then I almost fell out and laughed. Do I look like the kind of woman who's going to measure? I said, you know, somewhere between